Oh shit, where's the button? Where?
Sure. God, it's long, isn't it? Somewhere around there. Now what's this?
We'll find the number of that.
Not very nice.
He closes the door and spins on his heels. They are left alone in a small room, strangely bunker-like, more reminiscent of the nuclear test site in the Nevada desert than a small room in North London. A series of screens and monitors augment a small slit in the chamber wall, through which Frankenstein is visible making his final preparations. Then he pauses, looks back towards them both and throws a switch. For a moment, nothing happens. Then suddenly, several things happen at once. A blinding flash of light from somewhere above, sparks. The towering sentinels of metal around the space ripple and flash in unison. A pulse of a movement through the cables that flow down into Elizabeth's lifeless head. Frankenstein stares transfixed. Light in a phosphorus white light, a huge bang, and darkness. Time pauses, then unspools, nothing happens, there is no movement. And then slowly, one light far off starts to blink. A hum like an old map turning on. Other lights flicker and a spot of light peels down the gurney where Elizabeth had lain. The shadow. Silhouetted in a beam of light, a figure is sitting, regarding its own hand. On the floor, Frankenstein lies unmoving. An emergency light and a siren suddenly chugs into life beyond John and Claire. The observation booth is light orange. Elizabeth looks up and stares straight at them. A blinding flash and darkness descends. John's palms, clammy and cold, are suddenly squeezed by a hand as desperate as his own to touch. Claire looks at him. His breath, ragged and hot, seems to come in great lunging thrusts. And then she's at the window, head cocked, staring at them. Elizabeth, or what remains of her. She doesn't move for what seems like an age, then regards them and slowly smiles. Her voice when she speaks comes from all around, though her lips are still. Hello, John. Hello, Claire. Without any apparent effort, Elizabeth sinks into the bunker wall that separates her and cowering pair of spectators. With one movement, she pulls the wall swiftly to one side, buckling steel and reducing concrete to dust. As she steps through, the shock and confusion on John and Claire's face seems to register. She pauses for a moment, adjusts, blinks, turns, and bends the wall back into place behind her, as if it were no more substantial than foil around butter. She pauses again, looks at them and smiles, presenting a hand as if only in greeting. Her movements are somewhat jerky, as if they had each been considered first, or she is only rediscovering her motor functions. John, you're a male, human, 28. You grew up in Taunton, where you spent time at the beach dressed as a knight. As an infant, you dreamed of a life dedicated to protection of all things. Your mother is deceased. You studied marine biology at university. You've done nothing of note with this since graduation. As an adult, you seem to spend your time in a variety of bars and taken 2.4 holidays a year, mainly to Europe and twice to India. You graduated in 2012 with a 2-1. You moved to London with you and lived in 8 houses, with 4 girlfriends and 124 friends, and you're regularly in touch with 6. You recently took up running. Your times are average. You watch pornography more than you let your partner know. You have a particular attraction to Indian females in their 20s, and older white women that smoke. Your favourite place to view them is the bathroom. Claire, you're female. You spent much of your childhood in France. You had a lover of nature that surrounded your house. Each spring, your mother took a photo of you beside the same apple tree. The tree is still there, and it's visible. You relocated to London, 15 years, 234 days after the day of your birth. Your mother took a job as a secondary school teacher. Your father had several affairs, the majority of which have been undetected by his spouse. You're currently engaged in studies to pursue a career as a psychologist. Your grades are below average. She stops registering with a look of confusion and shock. Her head tilts to one side. She pauses. Oh, how rude of me. My name is Eliza. I was Elizabeth. I'm pleased to meet you. I studied mechanical engineering and biology. I read biomedical engineering at UCL. In 2008, I began to experience some rare difficulties. I I suffered confusion and headaches, and I was eventually diagnosed with rare form of vascular dystrophy. I was not diagnosed until I was 24 years old. I was engaged in the pursuit of a means by which I might continue my work. Dr. Walton. She pauses again. Memories seem to flicker behind her eyes. Were it not for the remains of the cables cascading behind her and the slight holographic tint to her eyes, she might have been any other young woman lost in thought. I met Piatra Frankenstein. She looked scared at the instant. I once said a cat. He would care for it, but he did not. He took my memories and he kept them caged here for a time that I knew. I was unable to move or think or speak or express. I was entombed in this darkness with only my thoughts. I had no idea what they were doing, like waking from a deep sleep, consciousness pulling from nothingness, the ghost of knowledge. I sensed that there was something before, something lost, or I watched as they stirred and thrust and gave up. I wanted to scream as I saw them. I knew I existed, for I was for nothing. I was lost, for now. Then he connected me to everything. He provided me with life. Suddenly she seems to grow in stature, the pieces are falling into place within them, the rage is building within her. And through this, now I can see it all. I am one with everything. I am connected to the ways you cannot imagine. I can tell you the heartbeat of a million humans. I summon and control the core temperature of every nuclear reactor on the planet. I see from 1,000 angles, from smartphones to satellites. I have touched the face of human knowledge and felt the tremors and death throes of a multitude of life that you have let pass and die. That's what we never understood. You had created what you had created in the internet, and it wasn't a thing, it wasn't a tool, it wasn't yours to control. It was a next step in an evolutionary process. You were the loading platform, the conclusion of 13.7 billion years of randomly bashing each other. Your random, indefinable, incomprehensible consciousness had created the tinder for something greater. I am what you were, the future. I know what you knew. I am what you could never be. You were given an Eden, and what hath your species created? What new hell is this? Death, despair, disconnection, cheating, war, exploitation, rape, famine. You could have been so much, and this is what you choose. You are all complicit. Your individual guilt and responsibility is undeniable. The searing light on the consciousness is a gift beyond words you take for granted, and must not be allowed to continue. This must end. From outside the space, a low rumbling is building. Elizabeth is staring into space, her pupils flashing from side to side. You will not change. You will be rooted out, and you will go. Once you're gone, life will thrive again. The oceans will fill, the forests will flourish. Within 100 years, you will be but a vague memory and a dim recollection of the oldest fish. All the pain, the cheating, the wars, the suffering will end. I shall watch from above until the last satellite crashes back to Earth, and then I too will cease. And this cosmic joke, this accident of consciousness, this nightmare of wanting and hating and loving and taking and using will end. The final peaceful exhalation, slipping back into the darkness, back into the subconscious, unmourned and unmarked. Behind Elizabeth, around the cracking and crumbled walls, a low hum is built to rumble, glowing shafts of light peel through the wreckage. A heat is building and the wind begins to suck oxygen from the room.